Hello everyone, and welcome back to When She Broke Us channel. Today, we have an incredible story, one that's dark, emotional, and shocking. It's a story about betrayal, humiliation, and the kind of heartbreak that leaves scars you can't see. We're sitting down with a man whose story will take you through a whirlwind of emotions, and I promise you, this is one you won't be able to look away from. From the first moment, through the betrayal, to the shocking aftermath, this is raw, unfiltered truth. So sit tight, make sure you're not alone for this one, and hear it straight from him. Let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us your name and a little about yourself, and then share your story with us?
I should have known something was wrong when Jessica started wearing perfume to bed. Not the vanilla body spray she'd worn since college, but something expensive, Chanel or Dior. I couldn't tell. Something that smelled like ambition and secrets. But I was too busy debugging code at 2 a.m. to notice that my wife had started treating our bedroom like a hotel room where she was just passing through. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 34 years old, and I'm a software engineer who dropped out of MIT in his junior year to build a startup that spectacularly failed. That last part, the failure, the lack of degree, used to be something Jessica and I laughed about over cheap wine in our tiny apartment. Who needs a piece of paper when you have talent? She'd say, kissing my neck while I coded on our second-hand laptop. That was 7 years ago, before she went back to school for her MBA, before she got the job at Hartman & Associates, before she started looking at me like I was a rough draft of the man she'd meant to marry. The company party was on a Friday in late October. One of those corporate events held at a rented loft in downtown Portland. All exposed brick and Edison bulbs, craft cocktails with names like The Disruptor and Synergy Spritz. Jessica had been talking about it for weeks, but in that distant way people discuss dental appointments, necessary, mildly unpleasant, soon to be forgotten. She bought a new dress, black and angular, something that looked expensive even though I knew we'd put it on the credit card we were supposed to be paying down. You don't have to come if you don't want to, she said that morning, already dressed, already perfect, checking her reflection in our bedroom mirror like she was preparing for battle. I know these corporate things bore you. The thing is, she was right. They did bore me, but something in her voice, too casual, too careful, made me say, no, I want to go. Support my successful wife. I smiled when I said it, but the words tasted like copper in my mouth. She paused, her hand frozen on her earring. Okay, great. Just try to mingle, okay? Don't just stand in the corner on your phone. When have I ever done that? She didn't answer, just grabbed her purse and headed downstairs. I followed, watching the way she moved through our house like she was already gone, like she was walking through a memory of a place she used to live. The party was exactly what I expected. 100 people in business casual, all holding drinks they weren't really drinking, all laughing too loud at jokes that weren't funny. Jessica disappeared within minutes, absorbed into a cluster of colleagues near the bar. I recognized some of them from her stories. Brad from accounting who did triathlons, Stephanie from marketing who just bought a house in Lake Oswego, Connor the VP who everyone said was destined for the C-suite. I got a beer, just a regular beer, not a Synergy Spritz, and found a spot near the windows where I could watch the crowd. This is what I do at parties, at gatherings, at family dinners. I watch. I notice things. The way people touch their faces when they're lying, the way they lean toward people they like and away from people they don't, the micro-expressions that flash across their faces before they remember to smile. It's a useful skill in my line of work, reading code and finding the bugs, the things that don't quite fit. It's less useful in marriage, where sometimes ignorance really is bliss. From across the room, I watched Jessica laugh at something Connor said. She touched his arm, just briefly, just a second, but it was there, a familiarity that made my stomach tighten. I took a long drink of my beer and told myself I was being paranoid. She worked with these people. Of course, they were comfortable with each other. You must be Marcus. A woman appeared beside me, blonde, mid-40s, holding a martini glass with the kind of confidence that suggested she'd earned the right to drink real alcohol at these things. I'm Patricia Hartman. I've heard a lot about you. I recognized the name. She was one of the founding partners, Jessica's ultimate boss. All good things, I hope. Jessica's very talented, Patricia said, which wasn't an answer. We're lucky to have her. She's lucky to have the opportunity, I replied, and even as I said it, I realized how it sounded defensive, like I was defending Jessica's right to work, like I was some 1950s husband who needed to approve his wife's career. Patricia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're in tech, right? Software. Software engineer, yes. Which company? Here it was, the question I'd learned to dread at these things. I'm freelance right now. Consulting work, mostly. Ah. One syllable, but it contained multitudes. Pity, dismissal, the subtle recalculation of my worth in her mental spreadsheet. That must be flexible. Before I could respond, someone called Patricia's name and she drifted away, leaving me alone with my beer and the growing certainty that I didn't belong here. Not with these people, in this space, maybe not even with Jessica anymore. I found her an hour later, standing in a circle with Connor and two other executives I didn't recognize. She was telling a story. I could tell by the way she gestured, the animated expression on her face, and they were all listening with that exaggerated attention people give to someone they consider important. I approached slowly, meaning to join the circle, to be the supportive husband. And I told him, "Look, if you can't meet the deadline, that's on you, not on me," Jessica was saying. "I'm not going to compromise the entire project because someone can't manage their time." They all laughed, appreciative, impressed. I stopped a few feet away, something in her tone making me pause. "That's the problem with working with people who don't have the training," Jessica continued, and my blood went cold. "They think passion and natural talent are enough, but in the real world you need structure. You need credentials." "Amen to that," one of the executives said, raising his glass. Connor noticed me first. His eyes flicked to me, then back to Jessica, and something passed across his face. Amusement? Pity? Couldn't tell. "Who are we talking about?" I asked, stepping into the circle. My voice sounded normal, casual, even though my heart was hammering. Jessica turned, and for just a second, less than a second, barely a flash, I saw something in her expression. Panic? Guilt? Then it was gone, replaced by a smile that looked practiced in a mirror. "Oh, just this contractor we had to let go last month. Total disaster." She sipped her drink. "Marcus, honey, this is Connor Reeves, VP of Operations." "Connor, this is my husband." Connor extended his hand and I shook it, noting the firm grip, the expensive watch, the way he stood just slightly too close to Jessica. "Jessica's told us a lot about you," Connor said, and there was something in his voice that made me think he was enjoying a private joke. "Funny, I feel like I don't know nearly enough about her work," I replied, still smiling, still playing the game. "Well, she's brilliant." One of the other executives chimed in. "Best hire we made this year. Patricia says she's already being considered for director level." "Director?" I looked at Jessica. "You didn't mention that." "It's preliminary," she said quickly. "Nothing definite." I didn't want to jinx it, but I could see it in her face now. This was why she'd bought the new dress, the new perfume, why she'd been staying late at the office and taking calls in the other room. She was building a life I wasn't part of, climbing a ladder I couldn't follow. The conversation moved on, flowing around me like water around a stone. They talked about quarterly reports and strategic initiatives and market positioning, using words that sounded important but meant nothing, and I stood there holding my beer, feeling myself become smaller and smaller, less and less relevant. Then Jessica's parents arrived. I saw them before she did. Thomas and Carol Bennett, both dressed like they were attending a gala instead of a corporate party. Both scanning the room until they spotted their daughter. They'd never liked me, not from the beginning, not when I was a promising MIT student, and definitely not after I dropped out. Thomas was a retired investment banker. Carol was on the board of half a dozen nonprofits, and I was the disappointment their daughter had inexplicably married in a courthouse ceremony they'd refused to attend. "Jessica, darling." Carol descended on us with air kisses and critical eyes that swept over me like I was a stain on the furniture. "This venue is lovely. So authentic." "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" Jessica's voice had a sharp edge I recognized. This was the tone she used when she was about to lose control of a situation. "Patricia invited us," Thomas said, shaking hands with Connor and the other executives. She thought it would be nice for us to see where our daughter works. We're very proud of her. The implication was clear. Proud of her despite her choice in husband. How lovely that you could come, Marcus, Carol said, finally acknowledging my existence. Still doing the computer thing? Software engineering, yes. She pursed her lips. Thomas and I were just saying how important formal education is in today's world. You can't get anywhere without the right credentials anymore. I felt Jessica stiffen beside me. Mom! No, it's true, Thomas interrupted. Look at Jessica. MBA from Northwestern. Already on track for director. That's what happens when you invest in your education. Connor was watching this exchange with poorly concealed amusement. The other executives had found reasons to drift away, leaving us in an increasingly uncomfortable knot. Education comes in many forms, I said evenly. Experience, self-teaching. Oh, please. Carol waved her hand dismissively. That's what people say when they don't have degrees. Jessica learned that lesson young, thankfully. She knows the value of finishing what you start. The barb landed exactly as intended. I'd been the one who'd convinced Jessica to take a gap year after undergrad, to travel, to figure out what she really wanted before jumping into more school. She'd resented me for it later, blamed me for the delay in her career, even though she'd been the one who'd wanted to backpack through Europe in the first place. I think we should, Jessica started, but her mother cut her off. You know, I told Jessica when she first brought you home. I said, honey, he seems like a nice boy, but where's he going? What's his plan? Carol took a sip of her wine, emboldened by alcohol and an audience. And here we are, 7 years later, and I hate to say I told you so, but you usually love saying I told you so, Jessica muttered, but there was no real resistance in it, no defense of me, just exhausted resignation. That's when Connor decided to join in. You know what Jessica told me when she first started? He said, leaning against the wall with the casual cruelty of someone who thinks they're being funny. She said, I'm married to my ex. I didn't understand it at first, but now I get it. You're like a previous version of herself, right? The one without direction, without credentials, without a future. The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. I looked at Jessica, waiting for her to say something, to deny it, to defend me, to do anything except stand there with her eyes fixed on her drink. Jess, I said quietly, tell me he's wrong. She finally looked up at me, and what I saw in her face wasn't love or regret or even anger. It was embarrassment. She was embarrassed by me, by this confrontation, by the fact that I was making a scene. Marcus, can we not do this here? She said, her voice tight. Do what? Defend myself? Defend our marriage? You're being dramatic. Am I? I looked around at the circle of faces. Connor smirking, Carol nodding approvingly, Thomas looking bored, Jessica looking trapped. Because it seems like I just learned that my wife tells her colleagues I'm her ex, that I'm some kind of cautionary tale she escaped from. That's not, Jessica started, but Connor interrupted her. Come on, man, don't make this awkward. She was just venting. We all complain about our spouses. Do you tell people your wife is your ex? I asked him. Do you describe her as someone with no future? Connor shrugged. I'm divorced, so technically. Marcus, please, Jessica said, and now there were tears in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were real or strategic, the kind of tears women learn to deploy when they need to shift the power dynamic. You're embarrassing yourself. No, I said, and my voice was steady now, calm. The kind of calm that comes when you realize you have nothing left to lose. I'm embarrassing you. That's what this is about. Isn't it? I'm the embarrassment. The husband without the degree, without the impressive job title, without the future you want. Thomas cleared his throat. Son, I think you should. I'm not your son, I said, cutting him off. I never was. You made that clear 7 years ago when you refused to come to our wedding. Carol gasped like I'd slapped her. That was different. You were rushing into things. You were so young. We were 27. Jessica's age when she got her MBA, which you were fine with. This isn't the time or place, Jessica hissed, grabbing my arm. I pulled away from her, and the movement was enough to draw the attention of people nearby. Conversations stuttered and stopped. I could feel eyes turning toward us, the way crowds sense conflict like sharks sense blood. "You're right," I said, loud enough now that my voice carried across the loft. "This isn't the time or place. Because there's never a good time or place to realize your wife has been lying to you, that she's ashamed of you, that she's been telling her coworkers you're basically already divorced." "I never said we were divorced," Jessica protested. But her voice was weak, defensive. "No, you said I was your ex. Your ex. No degree, no future." I could hear Connor's words in my own voice, the casual cruelty of them. "Those were the words, right?" Jessica's face crumpled. "Marcus, I was drunk. I was frustrated. I didn't mean." "What didn't you mean?" "The part about the degree. Because I don't have one, that's true." "The part about the future?" "Because I guess in your eyes, I don't have one of those either." Connor stepped forward, trying to play peacemaker now that the situation was spiraling. "Look, buddy, maybe you should cool off." "I'm not your buddy." I turned to face him directly. "And I'm not Jessica's ex, not yet. But I'm guessing that's the future she's been planning. The one where she gets promoted to director and trades up for someone with the right credentials, the right pedigree, maybe someone exactly like you." The words were cruel, calculated, and from the way Connor's face flushed, not entirely off base. Patricia Hartman appeared at the edge of our group, her expression carefully neutral. "Is there a problem here?" "No problem," I said, setting down my beer on a nearby table. "I was just leaving." "Marcus, wait." Jessica reached for me again, but I stepped back. I looked at her, really looked at her, for what felt like the first time in months. She was beautiful, successful, everything she'd worked so hard to become. And I was proud of her, genuinely proud, which made this whole thing hurt even more. "I loved you," I said quietly, just for her. "I loved the you who stayed up with me in that shitty apartment, eating ramen and dreaming about the future. I loved the you who said credentials didn't matter, that we'd build something together. But that person is gone, isn't she? She's your ex too." Jessica's tears were real now, streaming down her carefully made-up face. "Please don't do this." "I'm not doing anything," I said. "This was already done. I just didn't realize it until tonight." I turned to face the group. Connor, Thomas, Carol, Patricia, all the colleagues and executives who'd formed a loose circle around us like spectators at a cage match. "I want to propose a toast," I said, and my voice was loud, clear, carrying across the suddenly silent loft. Someone had turned down the music. Everyone was watching now. I picked up my beer again, raised it high. "To Jessica Bennett Webb," I said, "the smartest, most ambitious, most successful person I've ever known. May your climb to the top be everything you hoped for. May you find someone with all the right credentials, all the right degrees, all the right futures. May you get the director position and the house in Lake Oswego and the husband who looks good at company parties." Jessica was crying openly now. "Marcus, stop." "To my ex-wife," I continued, and the words felt like knives in my mouth, "who I'll always remember as the woman who dreamed with me in a tiny apartment, before she realized she could dream bigger without me." I drank the rest of my beer in one long swallow, set the glass down with a definitive clink. "Cheers," I said. "You'll never see me again." Then I walked. Behind me, I could hear Jessica calling my name, her voice breaking over the syllables like waves on rocks. I could hear Carol saying something sharp and judgmental, Thomas muttering about embarrassment, Connor offering useless comfort. I could hear the whole party exhale, the conversation starting up again with renewed energy. Everyone with a story to tell now about the crazy husband who made a scene. I didn't look back. I walked down the stairs, through the lobby, out onto the street where the October air was cold and clean and real. I kept walking, down blocks I didn't recognize, past restaurants and shops and people living their normal Friday night lives. I walked until I couldn't hear the party anymore, until the adrenaline started to fade and the reality of what I'd just done began to sink in. I'd left my wife, at a company party, in front of her bosses, her colleagues, her parents. I pulled out my phone and stared at it, waiting for the calls, the texts, the desperate messages begging me to come back so we could talk this out like adults. But the screen stayed dark, silent. Maybe Jessica was relieved. Maybe this was exactly what she'd wanted all along. The dramatic exit, the clean break, the story she could tell later about how she'd been married once, briefly, to a man who couldn't handle her success. I found myself at a bar, not one of the craft cocktail places with Edison bulbs and clever names, but a real dive bar with neon signs and sticky floors and a bartender who didn't ask questions. I ordered a whiskey, then another, and sat there trying to figure out how my life had fallen apart in the space of one conversation. The truth was, the signs had been there for months. Years, maybe. The gradual drift, the separate lives, the way we'd stopped really talking and started just exchanging information. When did you pay the electric bill? What time is your meeting tomorrow? Did you remember to call your mother? But I'd convinced myself it was normal, that this was just what happened in marriages, that the passion and intimacy would come back once we got through this busy season. Once Jessica got settled in her new job, once I landed a better contract and could contribute more to the household income. I'd been living in the once while Jessica had been living in the now. My phone finally buzzed. Not Jessica. Sarah. Sarah Chun had been my best friend since MIT, the one person who'd stuck with me through the startup crash, through the depression that followed, through everything. She was a data scientist at Intel, married with 2 kids, the kind of stable success story I was supposed to be. Dude, what the hell happened? Her text included a link to Instagram. With dread, I clicked it. Someone from the party had posted video. Just 20 seconds of shaky footage, but enough to capture me raising my beer, delivering my toast, Jessica crying, the shocked faces of everyone around us. The caption read, "Drama at the Hartman party. Popcorn face screaming in fear." It already had 200 likes. I was a meme. My marriage was ending on social media. "Call me," Sarah's next text said. "Right now." I stepped outside the bar to make the call, my hands shaking from cold or shock or whiskey. I couldn't tell. Sarah answered on the first ring. "Marcus, what the fuck?" "I know. No, I don't think you do. You just nuked your marriage at your wife's company party. It's all over social. Ashley sent me the video. Everyone's talking about it. Let them talk. Are you drunk? Getting there. Where are you?" I looked around at the unfamiliar street, the glowing bar sign, the city that suddenly felt hostile and strange. "I don't know. Somewhere downtown. Send me your location. I'm coming to get you." "Sarah, you don't have to." "Shut up. Send me your location." I did, then went back inside to finish my whiskey. 30 minutes later, Sarah walked through the door, still in her work clothes, her expression a mixture of concern and frustration that I recognized from a dozen previous crises. "Come on," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. "Mike's with the kids. You're staying with us tonight." In her car, driving through the wet Portland streets, Sarah didn't say anything for the first 10 minutes. Then, "Do you want to tell me what happened? Or do I have to piece it together from Instagram comments?" So I told her. Everything. The perfume, the dress, the party, Connor, the parents, the casual cruelty of my ex. No degree, no future. The way Jessica had just stood there, embarrassed and silent. Sarah listened without interrupting, her hands tight on the steering wheel, her profile sharp in the passing streetlights. "Okay," she said when I finished. "I'm going to say something you're not going to like." "Great. Can't wait. You're not blameless in this." I turned to stare at her. "Are you serious? Did you miss the part where my wife called me her ex to her coworkers?" "I heard that part. I also heard the part where you humiliated her in front of her bosses and parents. You wanted to hurt her, Marcus. And you succeeded. She hurt me first. Jesus Christ, are we in middle school?" Sarah shook her head. "Look, what Jessica said was shitty. Really shitty. But you two have been circling the drain for months. And you know it. This didn't come out of nowhere." She was right, of course. Sarah was always right, which was both her best and most annoying quality. "When's the last time you two had a real conversation?" she asked. "Not logistics. Not scheduling. A real conversation about your marriage, your feelings, your future together. Couldn't remember. Weeks? Months? When's the last time you asked her about her day? Took interest in her work? Made her feel like you were proud of her success instead of threatened by it? I'm not threatened. Bullshit. You're terrified that she's outgrowing you, so you've been pulling away, protecting yourself, building up resentment. And she's been doing the same thing. You're both miserable, but neither of you wants to be the first to admit the marriage is over. We pulled into Sarah's driveway, a neat suburban house in Beaverton with kids' bikes on the porch and a minivan in the garage. The life I was supposed to have, the stability I'd never achieved. Is it over? I asked quietly. The marriage. Sarah turned off the engine, sat there in the sudden silence. I don't know, Marcus, but after tonight, I think you need to decide what you really want. Do you want to save your marriage, or do you want to be right? Because you can't have both. Inside, Sarah set me up in the guest room with blankets and aspirin and water, treating me like one of her kids after a nightmare. Mike appeared briefly, gave me a sympathetic nod, said something about sports that was clearly meant to be comforting, then retreated to give us space. Alone in the dark, I checked my phone. Still nothing from Jessica, but plenty of messages from numbers I didn't recognize, people who'd seen the video, people who wanted to know if I was okay or wanted to offer unsolicited advice or just wanted to be part of the drama. I turned off my phone and lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the night over and over. The look on Jessica's face, the way Connor had smirked, the silence of the party after my toast, the sound of my own voice saying, "You'll never see me again," with such certainty, such finality. Had I meant it? Did I want to never see her again? Even now, even after everything, the answer wasn't simple. I must have fallen asleep eventually because I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains and Sarah standing in the doorway with coffee. "Your phone's been going crazy," she said. I heard it vibrating from downstairs. I turned it on. 27 missed calls. 43 texts. Most from Jessica, progressing from angry to worried to something that looked almost like panic. "We need to talk." The most recent one read, "Please, I'm at home. Come home." Home, I repeated out loud. Is it still my home? Sarah sat on the edge of the bed. Only one way to find out. I didn't want to go. Every instinct told me to stay away, to let the anger and hurt solidify into something protective, something I could build a new life on. But Sarah was right about one thing. I needed to decide what I wanted. And I couldn't do that hiding in her guest room, drowning in whiskey and self-pity. Our house. My house, our house, I didn't know anymore. Looked the same as it had 24 hours ago. Same blue door, same neglected front garden. Same porch where we'd sat last summer drinking wine and talking about getting a dog someday. Everything looked the same, but nothing was. Jessica's car was in the driveway. I sat in mine for a long moment, my hand on the key, trying to remember what I'd planned to say. All those hours lying awake, running through conversations in my head, and now my mind was blank. The front door opened before I reached it. Jessica stood there in sweatpants and one of my old MIT t-shirts. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Her face makeup-free, eyes red from crying. "You came," she said, and her voice was small, uncertain. "You asked me to." We stood there in the doorway like strangers at a first date, unsure of the protocol, the boundaries, what was allowed. "Come in," Jessica finally said, stepping aside. "Please." The house was a mess. Dishes in the sink, Jessica's work clothes from last night draped over the couch, wine glasses on the coffee table. 2 of them I noticed. She'd been drinking alone after I left, or maybe not alone. "Did someone else stay here?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "What?" "No." Jessica followed my gaze to the glasses. "I had wine and then switched to water. I was worried about you. I didn't know where you went. I went to Sarah's. I figured. I almost called her. But I thought." She trailed off, wrapping her arms around herself. "I thought you'd call me. When you were ready." "And say what?" Jessica flinched like I'd struck her. "I don't know. Anything. I just... Marcus, what you did last night. What I did. The anger came flooding back, hot and righteous. I defended myself. I called out your bullshit. You were the one who told your colleagues I was your ex, Jessica. You were the one who let your parents and Connor mock me while you just stood there. I know. Her voice broke. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. But you didn't have to. She stopped, took a shaky breath. You didn't have to destroy me in front of everyone I work with. My boss, Marcus. Her boss. Connor recorded part of it. Did you know that? It's in some work Slack channel now. People are sending it around. I'm a joke. Now you know how it feels. That's what you wanted? To make me feel as small as you did. Yes. The word exploded out of me. Yes, Jessica, that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted you to hurt the way you hurt me. I wanted you to know what it's like to be humiliated, to be dismissed, to be treated like you're worthless. We stared at each other across the living room. 7 years of marriage and 3 feet of carpet between us. And I realized with sudden clarity that Sarah was right. We were both drowning, and we were pulling each other down. Jessica moved first, sinking onto the couch, her face in her hands. When did we become these people? I sat down too, not next to her but in the chair across from her, maintaining distance. I don't know. I didn't mean it, she said, looking up at me with swollen eyes. What I said about you being my ex. I was drunk and angry and… Why were you angry? The question seemed to surprise her. What? You said you were drunk and angry. About what? What did I do that made you so angry you told your coworkers I was your ex with no future? Jessica opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You forgot our anniversary. Of all the things I expected her to say, that wasn't it. What? Last month. September 15th. 7 years. You forgot. The date rang a bell, distant and muffled. I'd been deep in a project, working 18-hour days, barely sleeping. Jessica, I made a reservation at that Italian place you love. Bought a new dress. Not the one from last night, a different one. Took the afternoon off work. And you texted me at 6 to say you were stuck on a conference call and would be home late. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You got home at midnight and went straight to bed. You didn't even remember. The memory came back now, hazy and incomplete. I'd been so focused on the code, on fixing a critical bug, that I'd completely spaced on the date. By the time I finished, I'd been too exhausted to do anything but collapse. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I know. That's what made it worse. You didn't hurt me on purpose. You just forgot. I wasn't important enough to remember. That's not true, isn't it? Jessica leaned forward, her intensity cutting through the space between us. When's the last time you asked about my work? Really asked. Not just, how was your day, while you're looking at your phone. I couldn't answer. Couldn't remember. When's the last time you planned a date? Surprised me with anything? Acted like you actually wanted to be married to me instead of just going through the motions. Each question was an arrow, precise and painful. Because she was right. I'd been checked out for months, maybe longer, protecting myself from the growing distance between us by creating more distance. You started it, I said, and even as the words left my mouth, I knew how childish they sounded. You were the one who pulled away first. After you got the new job, you changed. You started looking at me differently. Because you were treating me differently. Jessica's voice rose, cracking. Every time I got a promotion, every time I had a success, you acted like it was a personal attack. You'd get quiet, withdrawn. You'd make little comments about corporate culture and selling out. You made me feel guilty for being good at my job. I was proud of you. No, you were threatened by me. There's a difference. The words hung in the air, true and terrible. Because she was right. I had been threatened. Watching her succeed while I floundered. Watching her confidence grow while mine shrank. Watching her become the person she was always meant to be while I stayed stuck, unable to move forward or back. I dropped out of MIT for you, I said quietly. Jessica's face went white. What? The startup. I dropped out to focus on the startup because you believed in it. You said I was brilliant, that we'd make it work, that we didn't need degrees when we had vision. And when it failed, when I had nothing, no company, no degree, no prospects, you were the one who convinced me it was okay. That we'd figure it out together. We did figure it out. No, you figured it out. You went back to school, got your MBA, got your career on track. And I just stayed broken. The guy who dropped out, the guy who failed, the guy who wasn't good enough. Marcus. And the worst part, I continued, because now that I'd started, I couldn't stop, is that you started to believe it too, that I wasn't good enough, that you'd made a mistake tying yourself to me. I could see it in your eyes every time I told you about another freelance gig instead of a real job offer. Every time your parents came over and your dad asked about my career plans with that pitying look. Every time one of your colleagues asked what I did and you'd answer for me, quickly, like you were apologizing. I never apologized for you. You apologized for choosing me. Same thing. Jessica was crying again, silently, tears streaming down her face. That's not fair. None of this is fair. That's the point. We sat in silence for a long time. Outside, I could hear neighborhood sounds. A dog barking, kids playing, someone mowing their lawn. Normal Saturday morning sounds. The soundtrack to other people's normal lives. Connor asked me out, Jessica said suddenly. My heart stopped. What? 3 weeks ago, after a late meeting. He said he was attracted to me, that he knew I was married, but he thought we had a connection. She looked at me, her eyes searching my face. I said no, obviously. I'm married. Did you want to say yes? I don't know. Her honesty was like a knife. Maybe. Not because I wanted him, but because someone saw me. Someone thought I was worth pursuing, worth risking awkwardness for. Someone made me feel desired. I desire you. Do you? When's the last time you touched me, Marcus? Really touched me. Not just brushing past in the hallway or a perfunctory kiss goodbye. I tried to remember and couldn't. Weeks, maybe more. We'd been sleeping in the same bed but living in different worlds. After I turned Connor down, I felt guilty, Jessica continued. Not because I wanted him, but because for a minute, just a minute, I let myself imagine what it would be like to be with someone who was excited about me, who was moving forward instead of staying stuck. And that night, drunk at happy hour with the team, someone made a joke about work spouses, and I said something stupid about being married to my ex. I meant my old self, the person I was before I got my shit together. But it came out wrong, and everyone laughed. And I didn't correct it. Because it felt true. Because I was angry at you and it felt good to be angry instead of sad. The confession hung between us like smoke. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or devastated. She hadn't cheated, but she'd imagined it. She hadn't left me, but she'd wanted to. What do you want, Jessica? I asked. Right now, in this moment, what do you actually want? She was quiet for so long I thought she might not answer. Then, I want to go back to that apartment. The one with the shitty heater and the neighbors who fought at 2 in the morning. I want to be those people again, the ones who believed in each other. We can't go back. I know. So what do we do? Stay married and miserable? Get divorced and move on? Jessica stood up, walked to the window, her back to me. I don't know. I keep thinking about last night, about what you said. That toast. You'll never see me again. Did you mean it? I thought about it. Really thought about it. In that moment? Yes. I wanted to hurt you and disappear and start over somewhere you'd never find me. And now I'm here, which I guess is my answer. She turned to face me, and in the morning light, I could see every line of exhaustion on her face, every tear track, every bit of damage we'd done to each other. I don't want a divorce. Neither do I. But I don't want this either. This slow death. This resentment disguised as marriage. Then what? Jessica crossed the room, sat down next to me. Actually next to me this time, close enough that I could smell the vanilla scent underneath the expensive perfume, the real her underneath the armor. I want to try, really try, not just coast, not just survive. I want marriage counseling and hard conversations and actually fixing this instead of pretending it's fine. Your parents will love that. Marriage counseling is definitely not in the Bennett family playbook. Fuck my parents, she said, and the vehemence in her voice surprised me. Do you know what my mom said to me after you left last night? I shook my head. She said, well, at least now you can find someone appropriate. Like you were a phase I'd grown out of. Like our 7 years together meant nothing. Jessica's jaw tightened. I told her to leave. Told both of them to leave and not come back until they could be civil. My dad said I was being emotional and I told him he was being an asshole. Despite everything, I felt a flicker of admiration. Jessica rarely stood up to her parents. Their approval meant too much to her, had shaped too many of her decisions. What did they say? My mom cried. My dad said I'd regret it when I calmed down. Then they left. She looked at me. I don't regret it. I regret a lot of things, but not that. I'm sorry I humiliated you. I'm sorry I humiliated you first. We sat there, shoulders touching, and for the first time in months, the silence between us didn't feel hostile. It felt like a pause, a breath, a moment to reset. I need to tell you something, Jessica said. About the director position. My stomach tightened. Okay. I'm not taking it. What? Why not? Because it would mean 60-hour weeks, constant travel, even less time for us. And because... She hesitated. Because Patricia told me this morning that after last night's incident, the executive committee has concerns about my judgment and professional image. Apparently, having a public marital meltdown at a company event is bad optics. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. Jesus, Jess, Don't apologize again. It's not just you. It's the whole thing. Connor's inappropriate attention, my parents' bullshit, me complaining about you to colleagues, all of it. Patricia was actually kind about it. She said I clearly have personal issues to work through, and maybe I should focus on that instead of a promotion right now. That's fucked up. Is it, though? Jessica laughed, short and sharp. She's right. I do have personal issues. We have personal issues. And I was going to bury them in work and pretend they didn't exist. At least now I can't. I didn't know what to say. This felt like a loss, for her career, for the trajectory she'd been on, but also maybe like an opportunity. A forced pause in the climb that had been pulling us apart. So what now? I asked. Now we try. We find a therapist. We have those hard conversations. We figure out if we can actually fix this or if we're just prolonging the inevitable. And if it's the inevitable, then at least we'll know we tried. Jessica took my hand, the first real touch in weeks, and it felt both foreign and familiar. But I want to try, Marcus. Not for my parents, not for appearances, not because divorce is complicated. Because underneath all the bullshit and resentment and hurt, I still love you. I still remember that apartment, those dreams. I still remember why I married you. Why did you marry me? She smiled, sad and genuine. Because you made me laugh. Because you saw me as more than just my last name or my grades or my potential. Because you were kind and brilliant and weird, and you loved me for being weird too. Because being with you felt like coming home. And now being with you feels like work. But maybe that's what marriage is supposed to be. Not the easy beginning, but the hard middle where you decide if it's worth fighting for. I squeezed her hand. It's worth fighting for. You sure? Because I'm a lot of work right now. I'm wounded and angry and I say cruel things when I'm scared. So do I. We're both disasters. Perfect match then. We sat there on our couch in our messy living room, holding hands like teenagers, and it wasn't fixed. Not even close, but it was something. A beginning, maybe, or a new kind of middle. My phone buzzed. Sarah checking in, making sure I was alive and not doing anything stupid. I texted her back. At home. Talking. Trying. She responded immediately. Good. You two are idiots, but you're my favorite idiots. Call me later. Jessica saw the exchange, raised an eyebrow. Sarah? She hates me right now, doesn't she? She hates what we've become. There's a difference. Jessica nodded, accepting this. I should call my parents. Apologize for throwing them out. Should you, though? She considered this. Maybe not yet. Maybe let them sit with it for a while. Let them realize they can't treat you like shit and expect me to just accept it. They'll blame me for turning you against them. Let them. I'm tired of managing their feelings about my life. This was new. This Jessica, the one who was setting boundaries, who was choosing our marriage over her parents' approval. I liked her. Maybe I'd always liked her. Underneath the defensive armor we'd both been wearing. We should probably talk about last night's video, I said. Jessica groaned. God, I forgot about that. How bad is it? Bad enough. It's making the rounds. What are people saying? That I'm either a hero or a psychopath, depending on who you ask. That you're either a victim or a villain. The usual internet binary thinking. Great. So we're both memes now. Welcome to modern humiliation. At least we're doing it together. Jessica laughed. And it was real. The first real laugh I'd heard from her in months. Jesus, we're a mess. The messiest. Think we can survive this? I thought about the viral video, the judgment from strangers, the damage to her career, the wreckage of our marriage scattered across our living room. I thought about how easy it would be to walk away, to cut losses, to start over clean. I thought about that shitty apartment with the broken heater, about cheap wine and big dreams, about the way Jessica used to look at me like I hung the moon. I thought about the possibility of finding our way back to something real. Yeah, I said. I think we can. Jessica leaned her head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her, and we sat there in the wreckage of our marriage, two broken people trying to figure out how to be whole together. It wasn't a happy ending. It wasn't even really an ending at all. It was just a moment. One moment of honesty after months of lies. One choice to stay after so many reasons to leave. One small step toward something that might become healing if we were brave enough to keep walking. Outside, the neighborhood continued its Saturday morning soundtrack. Inside, we sat in silence, holding each other, beginning the hard work of becoming ourselves again. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email. Subject line, job opportunity, senior software engineer, tech lead position. I almost deleted it. I'd gotten dozens of these over the years, most of them dead ends or scams. But something made me open it. It was from David Chun, Sarah's husband Mike's college roommate, who'd gone on to found a startup in Seattle that had actually succeeded, that had grown into a legitimate tech company with hundreds of employees and real venture backing. Marcus, the email read, Mike mentioned you might be looking for new opportunities. We're building out our infrastructure team and need someone with your skill set. This is a real position, senior level, competitive salary, equity, the works. No degree required. Just talent. Interested. I stared at the email for a long moment, then showed it to Jessica. She read it, then looked at me with something I hadn't seen in her eyes in a long time. Hope. Seattle, she said. Seattle, I agreed. That's pretty far from Portland. It is. From my job. From my parents. From everything here. Yeah. Jessica was quiet, processing. Would you take it? If they offer it? I don't know. Maybe. If. I trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence. If we're staying together, Jessica finished for me. If we're really trying. Yeah. She took my phone. Read the email again more carefully. The salary is good. Better than what you're making freelancing. It is. And Seattle's a tech hub. I could probably find something there. Start over somewhere new. You'd leave Hartman? After last night? I might not have a choice. And even if I do, Jessica handed my phone back. Maybe a fresh start is what we need. New city, new jobs, new beginning. No history, no baggage. Just us figuring out who we are now. It's running away. Or it's running towards something better. Perspective matters. I thought about it. Leaving Portland. Leaving the apartment where we'd started. Leaving the city where we'd built our marriage and watched it crumble. Felt like giving up on something. Or maybe like giving ourselves permission to build something new. I'll set up a call with David, I said. See what the position actually looks like. No promises. No promises, Jessica agreed. But we both knew what this meant. Possibility, fragile and uncertain, but real. A chance to be more than the people we'd become in Portland. Trapped in patterns we couldn't break. The next few weeks were strange. We went to couples therapy, had real fights instead of cold wars, and slowly started to rebuild. I interviewed with David's company in Seattle. They offered me the position senior engineer, tech lead, real salary. Jessica found a consulting position there too, less prestigious than Hartman but more human-sized. When we told her parents about the move, Thomas called it running away. Or we're making a change that's right for us, Jessica said calmly. Either way, it's our decision. I was on track to work myself to death while my marriage fell apart. She added when her mother mentioned the director position. I'm choosing differently now. 3 weeks after the party, we accepted the offers and put the house on the market. The night before the move, we went back to our old neighborhood, the one with the shitty apartment where we'd started. The building was still there, looking exactly the same, just shabbier. Are we making a mistake? Jessica asked, looking up at the window where we used to dream. Moving? Starting over? Probably, but it's our mistake to make. She laughed. Not exactly a ringing endorsement. We're not exactly a fairy tale, but we're real. That has to count for something. Jessica turned to face me, serious in the streetlight. I love you. Not the you I married, not the you I wanted you to be. The you right now with all your baggage and flaws. I love you too, the real you, even after everything. Especially after everything, she said. Because now we know what we're capable of surviving. We kissed there on the sidewalk, in front of the apartment where we'd started, and it felt like a beginning and an ending all at once. On our first night in Seattle, surrounded by unpacked boxes in our new Capitol Hill apartment, we ordered pizza and sat on the floor. Think we'll make it? Jessica asked, pizza grease on her chin, looking more like herself than she had in years. I thought about the toast at that party, the dramatic declaration that she'd never see me again. I thought about how close I'd come to making that true. I thought about all the ways we'd hurt each other, all the reasons this shouldn't work. And then I thought about this moment, sitting on the floor of a new apartment in a new city, choosing each other despite everything. Yeah, I said. I think we'll make it. How can you be sure? I can't. But I'm choosing to believe it anyway. Jessica smiled, tired and real and beautiful. Faith in us. Faith in us. I agreed. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined that night at the party. Wasn't the clean break or the perfect reconciliation. It was messier than that, more complicated, more true. But it was ours. And that, I was learning, was enough.
Wow. That was an incredibly intense and emotional story. Thank you for trusting us and sharing such a personal and painful experience with such honesty. Your journey, from betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak, to reclaiming your life and dignity, is truly powerful, and I know it will resonate with many of our viewers who have faced similar struggles. To everyone watching, this story is a reminder of the strength we all have inside us, even in the darkest moments. If Michael's story moved you, made you think, or helped you reflect on your own life, I encourage you to leave a comment below. Share your thoughts, your experiences, or simply your support, it all matters. And don't forget to subscribe to When She Broke Us for more raw, real, and unfiltered stories of betrayal, resilience, and personal growth. Every story here reminds us that even through pain, there's a way to reclaim our power and dignity. Thank you for watching, and remember, your strength is greater than any betrayal, and your voice deserves to be heard.